Get ready, Ohio. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to the Buckeye State. And to kick things off, you can get started with $100 in free bets as an early sign-up bonus. Plus, when you sign up today with promo code OhioSB, you'll be all set for when FanDuel goes live in Ohio. Then you can bet on all your favorite teams and all your favorite sports with $100 in free bets. Just download FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Ohio, this is your chance to get in on the action. Join today with promo code OhioSB. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Ohio. Bonus issued in non-withdrawable free bets that expire 7 days after FanDuel accepts its first real money sports wager in Ohio on 1/1/23. Unique user identity verification required. Offer ends on the go-live date. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35.
5% credit back on pickup.
And a family account.
So we can shop together in a shared cart and get everything we need. Like toilet paper.
Like ice cream. Join Instacart Plus for family accounts, unlimited free delivery, and 5% credit back on pickup. Visit instacartplus.com to get 2 weeks free. Credit back excludes alcohol. Family account subject to availability. Additional terms apply.
Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast, bringing you the latest from the world of sports, DFS, and gambling. With over 5 years of hot takes and millions of downloads later, I guess he's been doing something right. Now, sit back and listen to one of the sharpest minds in the game. Here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
Alrighty, folks, it is a different episode of the show. Mainly, I got to record this early because I am currently at the DraftKings live final for King of the Beach tournament, so I cannot record this show on Sunday because I will be busy at the final. But I do have enough thoughts on the slate itself to kind of go through some of my initial thoughts and where things are kind of lining up. So we're going to get right down to it with the Sunday slate. And honest to God, I know folks want to just talk about the background issues with Deshaun Watson, and frankly, we just don't have time for that. If you aren't playing Deshaun Watson because you're citing his issues on the sexual abuse, allegations and everything else, I mean, frankly, you shouldn't be necessarily playing fantasy sports and DFS in that nature. I'm just going to say that point blank because you can't let the emotion of the guys you're playing dictate how you're going to approach slates. It's not a morality question. It's just more of a theory question of how you're going to attack the slate and just play fantasy sports or do DFS. That's the long and short of it. So the folks who stashed Watson in season long, this is obviously a play spot. It's the Texans against Cleveland, and Deshaun going to be back in Houston, where it's a home game for him. I mean, let's just be perfectly honest. He knows that field all too well. It's going to be a comfortable feeling for him. It's just one of those things where, yeah, he has the rust of not playing for almost a full 2 years. It's basically 18 months of not playing football. So there you have it. It's the long and short of it is what attributes do you attest to ring rust and the fact that it's a great matchup against a terrible defense in the Texans. Realistically, season long, you play Deshaun if you stashed him and you don't have top tier options because it's a great matchup. From a DFS standpoint, you basically got Deshaun at 6,500 on DraftKings. He's still cheap on FanDuel. I look at this as a slate where, from a cash game perspective, Deshaun makes a ton of sense. It is what it is. It's just you got a bad defense and a quarterback who, for all intents and purposes, should be a steady contributor in terms of price versus projected outcomes, given that Texans are one of the worst secondaries in the league, and you got Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has emerged as a bona fide number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. So at the end of the day, Deshaun makes a ton of sense. The question is the ring rust of not playing versus, everyone and their mother kind of knows who Deshaun Watson is. And from a casual fan standpoint, you're going to be seeing folks jam in Deshaun Watson, and he's going to be one of the most popular options from a DFS standpoint. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. To me, it's a straight up cash game play. I don't necessarily see it being a tournament winning lineup per se, because again, from some of the factors I kind of outlined, you've got Deshaun, who hasn't played in a while. I can see Deshaun not necessarily being one of the highest owned QBs because of some of these other matchups, and we do have the Cincinnati and Kansas City game to discuss. But when you think about in terms of projected point totals, this game's going to be popular. Now, my whole take of it is, if you're playing Amari Cooper without Deshaun or Donovan Peoples-Jones without Deshaun, I don't necessarily think that's necessarily viable route, because I do think you're going to get ownership heavily on Amari Cooper, even more so than Donovan Peoples-Jones, mainly because Amari went off, and people know he went off on Thanksgiving, and it's the next game back. People are going to flock right back to him. So he's going to get garner ownership at 6,400. It's again, the price tags on Cleveland versus the secondary. It's just one of those where it's just it's kind of annoying, because from a tournament lineup standpoint, it's hard in a large field GPP, in my opinion, to ship with a Deshaun stack where you're playing Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper together, because you still have the Nick Chubb factor. And it's that's the guy in the room that people aren't talking about. It's Nick Chubb against the Texans defense. Nick Chubb could easily pop off for 25 points. Now, could we see Cleveland feature Deshaun in the passing attack? Yeah, because the Texans secondary is that bad too. It's one of those. It's one of those. How do you want to take your ass kicking? Because I think the Texans are going to give up a ton of points. Vegas thinks they're going to give up a ton of points. That's why the Browns are projected for over basically covering the spread, even though it's 46 total. We've got a 8-point spread here. I mean, so long and short of it is, people are expecting the Browns to be putting up points. The question is, do we want to pivot to Nick Chubb at 8K and fade the Deshaun play? Fade Deshaun with the aspects of some of your items, because I think that at the end of the day, you still have certain aspects of this game. Now, the issue I have, and this is the other piece of it, when Cleveland gets up, they're going to want to run the ball with Nick Chubb. And this is why I think it's the perfect pivot to, if you want to go after the plays, the folks that you believe will be rostering Deshaun and Amari Cooper and Peoples-Jones, or some combination of the passing game, you counter it with the Chubb play, and you could even correlate it with Browns defense, because I'm still not sold on the Texans scoring enough points here. That's the thing that annoys me with this game, is the fact that you get the dome, you get a Texans squad where, they bench Davis Mills. They're playing Kyle Allen. The run back is Kyle Allen is throwing the ball to Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks wants to get traded. You could say it's a leverage spot with Kyle Allen being 5K, but Kyle Allen still isn't going to give you any ceiling to speak of from a fantasy scoring perspective. Cooks isn't cheap. He's 5K, but it's like, if you look at what Cooks has done because of him not wanting to play, and also the fact that he's stuck with Davis Mills and Kyle Allen throwing on the ball, he's not hitting double digits. This is like one of those where I'm not seeing the run backs on the Texan side to even feel remotely confident. And then the fact that people are going to try to play Nico Collins at 4,200. I played Jordan Akins last week at 2,700 as a pump play. He got some scores, so yeah, that might get popular at 2,900, but it's not one where I'm seeing a whole ton of value on the Texan side. It's like these prices are kind of where they are. This is not a good team in any sense of the word. I just look at this and say, why are we trying to jam? To me, given the Cleveland side, just run the Cleveland side naked. Don't do a run back, and see if they can rack up enough points. But I would just say, if you're trying to get different with Cleveland, you play Nick Chubb, even though it's playing Nick Chubb and correlating a defense is one of the more chalkier plays. I think on this slate, because of how many different ways you can build out your lineups, I don't mind playing Chubb, because I think you're going to get Chubb at less than 10% ownership. And if you play the Browns defense, because again, Kyle Allen sucks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can get the Browns defense at 3,900, and yeah, it's a 3,900 defense. Everyone's going to say it's too freaking expensive. There are enough value plays on the slate because it's a 3,900 defense. No one's going to play it, and you correlate the defense. If you think the Cleveland actually shuts it down, you can actually crush the Deshaun plays because it's a blowout. They just run the ball all day down Houston's throat, and that's the end of it. That's the thing that I kind of look at from a game theory perspective of just kind of looking at how you want to approach the slate a little bit differently than how others might be doing it. Is the fact that from a betting perspective, I think this is on the Browns all day, every day. I don't see where Houston keeps this game close because of the whole quarterback situation. And I hate the Dameon Pierce play. I hate it immensely. So to me, this is a full fade of the Houston pieces. I don't get anyone who's trying to do a run back with Houston. I don't see any rationale to do so. To me, maybe Jordan Akins, because you want to punt at tight end, and I have no issues for folks that punt at tight end, because tight end has just been so touchdown dependent that there's no way to kind of game plan around it unless you're just paying up at tight end and try to get safety. And I'm using that term very loosely when I say safety, because to me, outside of Kelsey, there really is no safe play in terms of tight end production week to week. All right, so enough about the Cleveland-Houston game. I just had to talk through the actual game theory aspect of it, because the pricing on the Browns is just going to be sucking people in. And I think it's important enough to have that discussion to kind of go through what the thought process should be, at least from my perspective. Now, next up, we got a game where I am crossing off entirely. You got the Broncos and the Ravens. Ravens 8.5-point favorites. Here's the bottom line. This line's going to keep moving in the Ravens direction, and I'm actually going to bet the Broncos side of it. Technically, I can't even bet the Broncos side of it because I'm in a state where you can't even bet. So Like now it clicked in my head. I was like, I did not bet this game, and I can't actually bet it being in California. But here's the thing. The Ravens have been very pedestrian in terms of their offense. The Broncos defense is still solid enough that I expect the Broncos defense to at least be able to hold up enough against the Ravens rushing attack that I don't see any pieces on the Ravens side that even remotely interests me, because Lamar is 7,800. Gus Edwards is back. You got Duvernay there. Could you play Mark Andrews at 6,600? Yes, but if you're looking at defenses and kind of how they do their coverages, this is not a great matchup in terms of defenses. I would say, in terms of NFL defenses, like the Broncos are in the bottom third, and actually I shouldn't say bottom third. It's more top third in terms of defensive ranks versus tight ends. So this is a tough matchup for Mark Andrews, in my opinion, and he's the only person I would consider to be remotely close to safe on the Ravens offense outside of Lamar. I think this is a Lamar runs the ball around kind of game, and I don't think the Ravens necessarily smash the Broncos. With this line keeping moving forward, I just look at this and say, if you got in when it was 7.5, okay, it could work. But my thing is, I would just tease this game and put it on the Broncos side and just tease it, because to me, I don't see the Ravens the way the Ravens have been running their offense and their struggles on the offense this year, because they don't have a consistent receiving threat. And don't tell me it's because Marquise Brown is gone, because Marquise Brown wasn't doing diddly squat, in my opinion. The issue is the fact that, Mark Andrews is banged up. Teams are well aware of what the Ravens are running, and the offense is stale. And that's just the long and short of it. So it's harder for the Ravens, if they can't exert their will on an opponent, to beat them when it's just coming down to an execution game. So from my perspective, this is a stay-away game from a fantasy aspect, because I don't see the Broncos offense doing much against the Ravens either. I know people want to force in Greg Dulcich, and I get it. The guy is fast. The Ravens defense is susceptible to terrible breakdowns in coverage, which we've seen all year. But, and the caveat I say to this is the fact that the Broncos offense is so inherently broken, they don't want to fire Nathaniel Hackett for reasons that I still don't understand. The guy was not hired by anyone except the GM, who should also be fired. This is the wildest thing I've ever seen in terms of an ownership group comes in. You got a GM who's underperforming, a head coach who clearly is in over his head, and they haven't made a single move yet. My only thing is that they're just firing everyone at the end of the year, but you're just wasting an entire roster of players for a season while everyone just dumps on Russell Wilson, who deserves to get dumped on. Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing any apologist work for Russ. He sucked this year. But there are so many other factors that are dysfunctional about this Broncos team that, Russ, you can put him at the top of the list, but there are other areas that I would attribute it to. I just think this is a stay-away spot, and don't play anyone from a fantasy perspective. I don't think you can trust anyone in this game to have even a remotely decent floor. So, to me, this is just go away and stay away. Next up, Green Bay and Chicago. Chicago, 4-point favorites. Green Bay, 4-point favorites, I should say. Chicago, home underdog at 4. This is, do you trust that Justin Fields is healthy? If you believe Justin Fields is healthy, what have the Packers done to justify being road favorites on there? This is only predicated on the fact that people don't think Justin Fields is going to be able to play this game. If Justin Fields is able to play, this line shifts again, and they think Justin Fields can play and that he might get cleared. But the reason why this line is still where it is the fact that, even when Fields is healthy, the Bears have lost games. And the narrative goes into how many times has Aaron Rodgers beaten the Bears. But let's be honest with ourselves. Aaron Rodgers has a fractured thumb. He's got banged up ribs. Is constantly cranky. This offense doesn't run well at all from where it is. They look old. The wide receiver core is young in parts and just incredibly lacking in other areas where it just looks like they're on completely different pages from Aaron, mainly because Aaron didn't practice with these guys all offseason. This team just doesn't look right. And so you're telling me I got to take them as a road favorite over a Bears team that is tired of losing to the Packers. They might have Justin Fields back. Okay, yeah, they won on Sunday Night Football, but even in Sunday Night Football, they didn't completely pull away and just pile drive the Bears the way we expected them to. That game was still relatively close until the fourth quarter, and then the Packers pulled away. To me, that was before Fields hit his stride. If Fields is even remotely healthy, this is Bears all day. Because we don't know the true nature of how healthy Fields' shoulder is, and, the Bears could hold him out, that's where you kind of lean towards the Packers. But if Fields gets the full go-ahead and looks decent in the first quarter, this is one where you just live bet the Bears. But that's just my opinion. I just don't think the Packers are nearly as stout as people are looking at it on paper compared to this Bears squad. Even with all the people that got traded on defense, the Packers are leaking oil fast. Their season is essentially over. What are the Packers playing for? This is what I'm asking, folks. It's realistically, when the Packers are just giving the deed to the Bears, if you know what I mean, the Packers are in that position where they're getting ready to go to the playoffs. That ain't happening this year. So what's the motivation for the Packers? Because I could see this Packers team at 4-8 packing it in, and the Bears looking to try to get a win finally over the Packers, see it's their shot, and then just take it to them. That's my fear for this game. I'm not necessarily playing this game, and I know people want to play David Montgomery. God bless if you want to play David Montgomery. I can tell you from season-long fantasy, David Montgomery is fantasy scoring deficient. So if you want to play David Montgomery, God bless. You'll be on your own island. I am happy fading this game entirely. I don't trust either side. If I play Fields, I would be probably playing him naked, even with Cole Kmet prices coming down a bit. I just think there are other plays on the slate that you can get to that you don't necessarily have to force these plays in. To me, Kmet's still at 3,800. It's not enough. I would just look at it and just fade this game entirely from a DFS standpoint and move on. But from a betting standpoint, I would live bet the Bears. As long as you see Justin Fields look solid in the first quarter, I would live bet the Bears. That's just my opinion on it. Next up, Jacksonville, Detroit. Detroit, 1.5 favorites over Jacksonville. Where are we going with this Jags team? I'm not seeing what the Jags have actually done to merit getting respect from the betting markets. It's I get that they've looked better. They've gotten wins. But it's not like the Jags are this consistent team that I would trust on the road. To me, Trevor Lawrence got to prove it. I know this is a bad Lions defense, but they've gotten slightly better. To me, this is if you're getting the Lions by one, or it might be the way the action's moving, it might be trending towards the Lions as a pick'em. I just look at this game and, truth be told, I just think this is Lions all day. But you know, I never I never look at a Jared Goff game as yeah. Let me hit that like in terms of a bet. Like to me, this is one of those where if you want to get creative, I think you can play a Jamal Williams and leverage it because most people will just play Amon-Ra St. Brown and maybe just do it as a one-off and just don't do anything else. I just think that there are other spots in the slate that you can kind of get to that you don't need the Lions pieces at all. So for me, again, it's boring, but I don't think you need to go there. On the Jags side, yeah, you can play Travis Etienne for 6,400. I'm not going to begrudge anyone saying that, but because of Etienne's injury history and the fact that he left last week with a foot injury yet again, what do we truly know? Like, do we know that foot is going to be clear to go for a full 60, or are they going to limit his reps and like just kind of give him 20 touches and limit it from an every down back perspective? I still think that there's a chance you can get a JaMychal Hasty a situation where he pops up running the ball because he knows the offense best. Yes, there's Darrell Henderson in the mix too, but the fact that Etienne looks like he's going to be playing, I think it's just going to be Etienne and JaMychal Hasty, and I wouldn't be shocked if for some reason the snap counts get limited for Etienne and it becomes Hasty getting way more work than anyone actually anticipated. I don't get the Trevor Lawrence at 5,900 play as other people are doing it. Like I think some people are going to play Lawrence and dial in Christian Kirk and the likes of Zay Jones. I get it. It's cheap because it allows you to fit in the KC and Cincinnati game. I get why folks would be doing it. I'm just not going to be one of those people. To me, this is just one of those games where I'm fine with letting it go by me, and if I get beat by it, I get beat by it. But to me, this is just not the week to be messing around with some of those spots. All right, so next up, we've got the Jets and Vikings. And this is the matchup I think can get very interesting because we had Mike White make his NFL first start of the year this year for the Jets. He's started in the past for them, but he tore up the slate. Let's just be honest. So I got it wrong. I thought it was going to be a run heavy script with Michael Carter, and they mix in some James Robinson. All of a sudden, James Robinson gets scratched. It's Michael Carter, and Zonovan Knight is the number 2. All of a sudden, Michael Carter gets injured. Zonovan Knight still gets run, and is gonna be the lead back for the Jets this week, because James Robinson, for whatever reason, is completely on the outs with the Jets coaching staff. He sounds disgruntled, even though the Jets traded for him. Zonovan Knight has looked good. They're going to give him the run. Zonovan Knight is 4,600. And for those of you who listen to this show, I think this Vikings team is incredibly fraudulent. I think the Vikings are just as fraudulent as my Giants. The thing of it is that they have Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson technically is one of the leading candidates of NFL MVP. Even though he won't get the MVP votes, I think he's one of the leading candidates for MVP because of how he changes your defense. Here's the thing. This is one of the worst matchups for him because Sauce Gardner has been light years ahead of where I thought he'd be to start his NFL career. He's that good in coverage. I think this is a very tricky matchup because as good as Justin Jefferson is, it still comes down to Kirk Cousins being able to fit the ball in tight windows. Now, the game played out where I thought the Pats were going to try to shut down Dalvin Cook last week, and they were going to leave it up to Kirk to beat him with his arm, which he did. But if you look at that game, he could have thrown way more picks than he did. Like, he almost threw a pick six. He had a couple of more passes that should have been picked off by the Pats. You saw the Pats just get absolutely hammered by the Bills, even though the Bills weren't even playing well Thursday night. Like, the Bills could have won that game by 30 if they still didn't dick around the way that they do sometimes. I kind of look at this, and this is just one of those things where everything has lined up perfectly for the Vikings. This Jets team technically should be able to slow down Justin Jefferson and also be able to control the run game for the Vikings. I want to see the Vikings prove it again. And yeah, could I have this wrong? Absolutely. But it's not going to shock me in the slightest when the Jets beat the Vikings outright on the road. It's not going to shock me. Like, to me, the reason why this line is only Vikings -3 is that Vegas knows what I know too. That this Vikings team is not nearly as good as their record. Because if they were 9-2 and they actually were believed in, this line should be 5.5. It should be a 5.5 line. The reason why it's not a 5.5 line is because of the fact that this team's kind of sus. It's kind of sus. And from a fantasy perspective, Zonovan Knight, just kind of going through the numbers, you're going to get at least the floor because the Jets still want to run the ball and establish a passing attack. Garrett Wilson had a monster game because the Bears secondary just would not throw someone over the top against them. That's not going to happen with the Vikings. To me, I still look at this as a slate where it should be a run-heavy script for the Jets. They try to limit the turnovers, play field position, but Zonovan Knight, even though he doesn't get into the end zone that often, is still in a pretty good spot to get you a floor of 11 and could get you to 20. That's where I look at Zonovan Knight. I'm not looking at him to blow the slate. I'm looking at him where at 4,600, this is how you start fitting in some of these pieces from the Chiefs game if you want to go that route, or on the Bengals side, is by going to a Zonovan Knight in terms of the build. Because from my standpoint, I don't think folks are necessarily going to be looking at him. They're going to look at it and say it's going to be a running back by committee. They think, you could say James Robinson could still get work. It could be Ty Johnson. Zonovan Knight in preseason was the guy that the Jets coaching staff talked about. So why wouldn't he get work in replacing the Michael Carter role? To me, this is where I think, trying to overthink it is not the way to go. Like, I look at it from the standpoint of who is the hot hand, because the Jets can make the playoffs. There's a reason why Zach Wilson got benched. A, no one could stand him. B, the dude was holding back from making the playoffs. The Jets are going to make a honest effort of making the playoffs. They're going to play the best running back they have. Knight is the best running back that they have, not named James Robinson. I still think James Robinson is their best option, but if the coaching staff doesn't like him, they're not going to play him. So, to me, getting scared off of playing Zonovan Knight because it could be a 3 running back committee doesn't make sense, because if you look at the workload, it was a 2 running back committee. Michael Carter got hurt, and then Zonovan Knight just took over and just ran all the way through. Like, I just think that you've got the floor with Knight, and I think he's going to be at round 10 fantasy points as a floor, and with a much higher ceiling capacity, because I still think they're going to feature him a bit in the passing game as well, just because of the Vikings' coverages, they'll drop off at times. I think Mike White's going to have to dump the ball off to Zonovan Knight, because I don't think he's going to get the free running wide receivers he got last week. The Vikings' defense is their strength, not their offense. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but their offense is carried by Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. Realistically, their defense has been the reason why they've won most of the games that they have, which is a crazy thing to say, but if you're watching the film, that's kind of how it plays out. The offense kind of stalls. Justin Jefferson eventually gets his points, but to win the game, the defense usually has to make a play or two. I just look at it as like this Jets team has more than enough ways of hanging around to make this game interesting, and I like the Jets outright bet against the Vikings. You can bet the spread, but this is one of those where easily you can toss it into a teaser and take the Jets side of things. But I think they can actually win this game outright. From a fantasy perspective, though, other pieces on the Jets, you can look at a Tyler Conklin. I can already tell you, people are going to flock to. They're going to flock to Garrett Wilson again, trying to catch lightning in the bottle again at 5,300. Could you do it? Yeah, you can certainly do it. I just think that if you want to get around that, I don't think it's the Jets passing game. I think it's going to be back to the running attack that we would have expected the week prior. So that's my take on it. You can go with an Elijah Moore for 3,700 as a cheap piece. Again, I know folks are going to be trying to jam in the Chiefs Bengals game. So those are a couple of things you kind of keep in mind. Now, from the Vikings standpoint, this is a very simple conversation for me. When it comes to the Vikings and it's a main slate and you don't have a ton of options, it makes all the sense in the world to just play Justin Jefferson and TJ Hockenson, and you can sprinkle in some Dalvin Cook when he's price cheap, which he is actually this week. He's at 7,200. You can actually work in Dalvin Cook. Justin Jefferson's 8,900. You're going to have to work to get to Justin Jefferson. I think folks are going to run it with Garrett Wilson and Justin Jefferson one up like a correlation piece and just do a mini stack with those two. I just think it's going to be too popular. I think you're better off doing the Garrett Wilson with TJ Hockenson correlation, or you do it the other way with Justin Jefferson and Tyler Conklin. That's the way I would look at it. But I could from just knowing how folks are going to look at it, like they're just going to do the wide receiver versus wide receiver and build that way. I'm not saying it's the wrong way to build it, but I just think it's going to be pretty common for anyone still fitting in Justin Jefferson. And the thing is, Justin Jefferson is usually under 10% ownership. I think that's going to be a bit different this week. I think he's done enough the last couple of weeks, and people still look at the Jets as a team that you can shred. I just don't necessarily want to test the matchup against the Jets secondary with Sauce Gardner. To me, there just seems to be way more ways of this blowing up spectacularly. And at 8,900, that's one where it's just it's an MME play. I don't think it's a 3-max, a single entry type of build. I think that's more of an MME play when you've got 150 lineups and, you just want to put in different game scripts of how you want to build out your roster. I don't think it's Justin Jefferson fits it in this week. Otherwise, so to me, I just think it's you're stretching yourself way too thin. Next up, we've got Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Steelers. All right, here's the long and short of it. Kenny Pickett has looked better. That doesn't mean he's actually playable on classic slates. I mean, I just look at the Steelers as just not the team to be playing on classic slates outside of George Pickens. George Pickens got priced up now, so he's at 5,100. Literally, that's the only play on the Steelers I would even contemplate because Freiermuth is over 4K. I just don't think anyone else is playable. Like Najee Harris, you could play him at 6,100, but the guy got hurt again on Monday night. He's constantly injured. I just don't see the upside in playing Najee Harris because I don't think he gets enough reps to smash a slate. And at 6,100, it's not that you need him to smash, but you got enough pieces around him. And I think Cordero Patterson, because of his pass catching work, in addition to the carries on the ground, is going to outscore Najee. And he's at 5,800. So to me, this is one of those games where just like, I could look at a Cordero Patterson, but I have other plays I want to go to, such as Donovan Knight, that I'm probably not getting there. But if I were to play this game, it's just those two pieces between Cordero Patterson and George Pickens, and that's it. Like there's nothing else to speak of it in this matchup to go with. Now, with Atlanta being slightly favored, yeah, it's like this one's kind of those like you can bet the Atlanta money line, but I don't necessarily have a strong lean one way or the other because we already kind of know the limited ceiling Marcus Mariota has. If Mariota plays well, the Falcons win this game easily. But we know Marcus Mariota has struggled at various junctures of this season. Falcons being 5-7, they need to win out. But, it's just one of those things where I think the Falcons are what they are. I'm not messing around with this line outside of, just kind of looking at a couple of props. The props aren't out, and I can't bet props this week. So not going to go too crazy over this one. Next up, Philly and Tennessee. The Titans visiting Philly. This is one of those spots where I'm not necessarily getting the line for Philly being 4.5 over the Titans. Like, this is where, as opposed to the Vikings who get no respect, I think Philly gets a little bit too much respect because they're going to go back to the revenge narrative aspect of folks talking up A.J. Brown versus his old team in the Titans. Titans should have never traded Brown to the Eagles, but they did because they couldn't get Ryan Tannehill to renegotiate his contract, which is one of the dumbest things I ever heard of. But c'est la vie. We find ourselves in this spot. Essentially, I think Derrick Henry should have a good day. But the play I'm more focused on is Treylon Burks at 4,600. I think you get enough value where Burks plays because he's going to play in the X at certain junctures. I think you can target Philly in the slot at times, and Burks is going to slide in and out and play kind of that A.J. Brown role. If you want to do a run back with A.J. Brown and Treylon Burks, I don't have a problem with it. A.J. Brown being 7,800. The issue I have more when it comes to Philly games is the fact that, when Jalen Hurts locks onto a guy, he really locks on. So if you truly believe the revenge narrative, I think this is one of those games where you got to commit to it, and you're playing Jalen Hurts with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, and also probably thrown in Treylon Burks as your value play, and then throwing some punts as well, like in fully game stack it. To me, if you truly believe in this game, from a fantasy perspective, the line's at, like, the total's at 44. Like, we've got some higher scoring games, but from a DFS standpoint, like, these players are priced up as if this is a 50-point total. So to me, you got to fully commit to this game if you're really going to be playing it. I think playing the single pieces, like, I don't think the pieces alone get there unless this game shoots well over the total. And then if that's the case, the pieces are all kind of coalescing together into a massive point total gap where all the fantasy points are being concentrated between 4 dudes. And, yeah, Miles Sanders had his pop-off game last week. I don't expect that to happen again. I still think you're going to get the Jalen Hurts rushing upside going to it. So, to me, this is one of those where I look at the Titans side. I like the Titans here. Yeah, Philly's good. It's like, I'm not saying Philly's not good, but I do think that the Titans can run with Derrick Henry on this Philadelphia front. I think they can tire him out, and I think Treylon Burks can get open enough that even Tannehill can make it work, even though realistically this should have been way simpler to do with just having A.J. Brown on that squad and just like and tell Tannehill to take a pay cut. But the past is the past. They got to make do with what they got now. So I think the Titans can actually get there. Given the spread, I think that 5.5 number is just a bit too wide. If Philly does win it, I think it's one of those late game situations where they win it by a field goal. So either way, I still like the Titan side of things. And this is one of those games you can also throw into a teaser where you have bet the Titan side up a bit further with so you give yourself a bit more room. But I'm on the Titan side of the betting line here. Next up, we've got the Commanders at the Giants. I'm going to be perfectly blunt here, folks. These two teams are literally the exact same team. I don't understand how the Commanders are favored over the Giants when they literally are the exact same team. The only difference is the Commanders have better wide receivers and the Giants have Saquon Barkley. Giants have a better running back. Commanders have the better passing attack. They got both limited QBs under center and solid defenses. This game plays low. It's a 40-point total. I think it goes under. I think kickers are involved here for showdown purposes. Like, you can play the kickers. To me, this is one of the low-scoring games. I want no piece of this game at all. I know people want to play Giants defense. I don't have a problem with it. It's just that I think even knowing the Commanders and how tight this game is going to be, they're going to tell Heineke, check it down. Do not take chances. And with the Giants defense at 2,900, it's pricey enough where you need the Giants to get a couple of turnovers to make it work. And I'm not necessarily as sold on the Giants getting there from a production standpoint, defense-wise. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. But after the break, we're going to get into the afternoon slate of games. So stay tuned.
You ever thought about your car personality? What's your vibe? Do you like the classic fully gas-powered engine? Are you best of both worlds type, driving on battery power while keeping gas on reserve just in case? Or are you more inclined to choose a convenient hybrid ride? Whichever your vibe, there's a Hyundai Tucson to match and powertrain to get you there. Hyundai's 2023 Tucson lineup pairs the tech you want with sleek and stylish designs. They paid attention to all the details, the seats, the dash, the available panoramic roof. You name it, Hyundai thought of it all the while making sure each trim has enough room to hold the space for your grocery runs, festival nights, and tailgates. Okay, Hyundai, when it comes to the journey, Hyundai is there for every mile. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the 2023 Hyundai Tucson. The 2023 Tucson plug-in hybrid is only sold in California, Colorado, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Vermont.
Get ready, Ohio. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to the Buckeye State. And to kick things off, you can get started with $100 in free bets as an early sign-up bonus. Plus, when you sign up today with promo code OhioSB, you'll be all set for when FanDuel goes live in Ohio. Then you can bet on all your favorite teams and all your favorite sports with $100 in free bets. Just download FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Ohio, this is your chance to get in on the action. Join today with promo code OhioSB. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Ohio. Bonus issued in non-withdrawable free bets that expire 7 days after FanDuel accepts its first real money sports wager in Ohio on 1/1/23. Unique user identity verification required. Offer ends on the go-live date. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, we are back. And, in the afternoon slate, I would say, we have some very interesting decisions to make in terms of builds because we've got Miami at San Fran. You got Christian McCaffrey, the highest, most expensive play on the slate. It's McCaffrey. The Miami defense isn't great against the run, but McCaffrey has been banged up. And no Eli Mitchell, who's out for a year at this point. So it's McCaffrey And, it's like, what do you want to do? Like, I think that at the end of the day, could he get the work and be the highest scoring running back? Yeah, it's possible. It's certainly possible. But at 8,600, you really need him to go off. And I would just take the chance at $100 less with Eckler against a sorry-ass Raiders team. Even though they play the Chargers tough, I think you still have upside with Eckler getting involved against the Raiders defense and shredding them than McCaffrey just getting all the work and pounding the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins give San Fran more than they can handle. I think the Dolphins actually win this game. The question is, how much of it comes down to Tua in the passing attack versus running the ball. They're going to give the ball to Jeff Wilson. I'm not talking up the Jeff Wilson revenge narrative because, frankly, the 49ers defense is solid, and it's Jeff Wilson who could get injured at any given moment. What I am saying is Miami is trying to balance out the attack, but they're going to throw more often than not. So the question is, do you think Cheetah can get there with some Tua stacks? Now, it's always a case of who's going to get there between Cheetah and Jalen Waddle. I mean, Tyreek is going to be 8,800. Waddle will run you 7,400. So, they're pretty much in the same price range as they've been at for the last month or so. And Tua, again, because of this slate, not that expensive. He's only 6,700, or way more expensive QBs, especially when you get to the Bengals and Chiefs game. You can pivot off of the Bengals-Chiefs game by playing Tua and the passing attack against the 49ers. You don't necessarily need to run it with McCaffrey. You can just play George Kittle because the Dolphins' defense is weak against tight ends. This does kind of lead itself towards George Kittle being a thing this week. Am I going to be on Kittle? Nah, I don't necessarily need to do it. To me, this is one of those where it's a nice to think about kind of game from a game theory perspective to be off the beaten path. But, totals at 45. Could it go over? Yeah, but it seems risky that this game could just kind of be back and forth with punts, even though guys are racking up some fantasy points and getting passes underneath. It's not necessarily clear to me that there's a line of demarcation where you're going to get clearly separation in terms of volume. So that's where I'm more of the camp of you don't need to play this game, but could you one-off pieces or two? Yeah, you can stack it too, but I think there's more of a one-off type of game. Maybe someone gets there, but I don't think everyone gets there in terms of doing stacks and run backs in this one. Next up, Seattle and LA, the Rams. No Aaron Donald for the Rams, but Seattle's just going to run the ball. And with the Rams defense being 2,300, I'm kind of okay taking a chance that the Rams defense can cause some turnovers by picking off Geno in the secondary. I feel this is one of those where you play cheap at defense and you might get rewarded for it. And from that standpoint, it's never that great of a feeling because, when you start paying down a defense, I can see folks start thinking about, Rams are only 2,300. Let me just keep paying down. And that's how I save money to fit in the Chiefs-Bengals game. So, that's something you got to bear in mind. But, I'm not necessarily going to tell you to avoid it either. I'm probably going to be playing the Rams just because I honestly think they can win this game. And I know folks are looking at this from the standpoint of the Rams are done, the season's over. Like, why are they going to give Seattle trouble? They always give Seattle trouble. Like, that's just one of the matchups where it's a little bit tricky. Now, do I think that the Rams are going to do anything on offense? No. This is going to be one of those cases where we've got, I want to say it's, when I went back through this, I had to double check again on the quarterback situation, but I still think it's going to be Bryce Perkins again under center for the Rams instead of John Wolford. And because of that, the Rams you can't use the passing attack for the Rams because Perkins isn't going to throw, he's going to run. Could some folks just play Perkins? Yeah. That could certainly happen, and you just run Perkins naked and just fit in the pieces of the Chiefs-Bengals game and do it that way at the QB spot. Like, there are different ways of getting to the Bengals-Chiefs game is my point on all of this. But from this game alone, I'm not necessarily interested on the Perkins side of things, outside of maybe like large field contests, but I am looking at that Rams defense as a potential option where you get a low-scoring game. Maybe they turn over Geno, and they pay off their value from the turnover. So, and I still think they can get pressure on Geno for a sack standpoint, even without Aaron Donald. I still think they got enough engine underneath the hood to get it done. So, to me, this is one of those. Not necessarily interested in the game, but if you look at it, there's a very reasonable chance that the Rams hang around that one, and you don't see Seattle hammering it because it's an 8.5 total. 8.5 spread. I can't trust this Seattle team with that large of a spread. I get that Perkins sucks, but to me, this is one of those where it's just low scoring enough where you can get the backdoor cover from the Rams, but I just stay away from this game in general, betting wise. All right. Next up, we got the Chargers and the Raiders. I mean, this Raiders team is just, they find ways of bullshit. Josh Jacobs just keeps going off. Between Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, they are saving this Raiders season, even though this season is essentially over. They're still 4-7, but they had no business winning the last 2 weeks. None whatsoever. This should be a 2-9 team. If not for Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, just carrying the team, with blubbering Carr under center. I mean, this is just where it comes down to. Do you want to play Josh Jacobs at 7,900 when he's the most popular play on the slate? No. But the Chargers are the worst run defense in the league. So this is one of those where you got to have to start planning around it. It's do you just accept that he's going to be popular and that it's a great play because of its a lousy run defense, which the Chargers are. They're not getting better. They are just bad on run defense. Do you go with Josh Jacobs, or do you try to get different and say maybe the Chargers just keep trying to load the box and it gives you an opportunity to take Devontae Adams and you find the money for Devontae Adams at 8,700, or you play a Matt Collins at 4,600, and then you find other pieces between Matt Collins and Foster Moreau at 3,600 to play the Raiders passing game. Maybe that gets you there. But I think between Jacobs and Devontae Adams, it's more than likely one of those guys goes off. You won't get both guys going off, not necessarily, although it did happen the last 2 weeks. I just don't think it's statistically that can keep up at this point. But if there's a way for this game to go off, it's going to come down to the Chargers offensively just being able to spread the ball around and keep moving the stick. So I like Justin Herbert this week. I like Eckler at 8,500, even though he's expensive. He's going to catch passes. Keenan Allen is at 6,500. Great cash game play. You can still play him in tournaments. Josh Palmer, 5,600. Big play upside. DeAndre Carter, 3,900. Big play upside. Gerald Everett, not necessarily big play upside, but will still get you a decent floor because the Raiders are also terrible against tight ends. This is just one where the vertical trees for the Chargers make them diversified where it's hard to get it right. But from an MME perspective, you can play around with your different combinations because the price tags are just so generous in terms of most of the Chargers pieces that you can still make the Eckler at 8,500 work because he's another pass catcher. And with Herbert at 7,200, it gets you a little bit different from the Burrow and Mahomes of the world. Even though Herbert's more expensive than Burrow, you can at least kind of like game at least rationalize the thought process through the slate because I think between these two late games, one of these has the most upside for a fantasy production standpoint. It could very well be the Raiders game, and it ends up being Jacobs and Adams. But this Chiefs-Bengals game is not going anywhere. I mean, from a betting perspective, could you take the Raiders as a favorite? I guess if you like burning money, but, as dumb as the Chargers play, I still think the Chargers beat the Raiders. So I'm going to be on the Chargers side of the fence here. But in my opinion, this is a Chargers win, and you can do different stacks of this game where you have run backs, and maybe even more than one run back if you wanted to go to Matt Collins, Foster Moreau route of building your lineups. Next up, we've got the game of the day, Kansas City and Cincinnati. It comes down to the fact that I just think that these are like just the AFC favorites. Like it's shaping up that way where the Chiefs are getting there. Buffalo, because of all the screw ups that they keep having, like I fear that Buffalo's just going to get knocked out earlier than people expect. And at this point, I won't be surprised because I've seen Buffalo just make enough silly mistakes in games that eventually it's going to cost them in the playoff game. Like, unless they figure it out, I think they're going to somehow drop a game to a Tennessee or a Cincinnati, and that just shapes up how the AFC title game is going to go because I expect to see the Chiefs there. The Chiefs are just being way more efficient and opportunistic with their chances and just taking teams to task. So from that perspective, do I look at this game any differently where the Bengals are going to be underdogs at home? I think you can certainly tease this game on the Bengals side and get a little bit more room, but I expect to see points in this game. To me, Jamar Chase is back. Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, is going to blitz. Jamar Chase is going to be there, and he's gonna have deep play pass opportunities. 7,900, Burrow's favorite target. Burrow 6,900. I think this is very dangerous where you've got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on the slate. I am not fading that, and you still got T. Higgins at 7,200 if you want to get off of Jamar Chase in any way, but it's a very scary proposition. And then you got Hayden Hurst at 3,500. Could you see folks going double tight end with Hayden Hurst and Travis Kelce? Absolutely. So, to me, there are various ways of playing this game that you can brainstorm around it. You've got Sky Moore at 3,100. You've got Justin Watson at 3,200. There are ways of game stacking this one where I know folks are going to do it. I'm not sure how I'm going to land on the game itself, but there's still going to be enough point production. And, yeah, you could even play a Juju Smith-Schuster at 5,700. I'm not going to hate the play with the injuries some of the Chiefs wide receiver corps still has. to me, my whole perspective on all this is the fact that you can go through this slate and there's not that much I can say that's going to like change all that much. Like, I love the afternoon games, and that's where it just kind of comes down to like how you want to build out your lineups. But realistically, do I expect the Chiefs to win? Yeah. Would it shock me if the Bengals won? Absolutely not. In picks pools, if you're behind, I would say take the Bengals side because the public is going to be on the Chiefs. You already know this, so if you got to catch up in your picks pools, you take the Chiefs. You take the Bengals side against the Chiefs. But if you want to bet on the outright winner, I think it's just going to be the Chiefs side, and the lines are going to be low enough that you can just take the Chiefs at -2, and likely they'll probably if they win, it's going to be by a field goal. But I just think it's going to be a tight game where you can tease this one, and it wouldn't shock me if the Bengals won this game at all. So that kind of does it for the main slate. We got Sunday Night Football with Dallas and Indy. I'm not going to be covering Showdown this week between the Indy game in Dallas nor the New Orleans and Tampa games. So from my perspective, I would just say it's going to be heavily favored to Dallas. It's going to kind of come down to what pricing can you get for Tony Pollard. I haven't looked at any of this stuff, but to me, it's like Tony Pollard and Zeke, make your choice at running back. Who's going to get enough work because they're going to be able to run the ball. And then the Colts are going to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. I just think the Cowboys defense is going to slow him down enough that it doesn't really matter. But, it's at least a game theory perspective where you got to figure out what Colts pieces are going to get enough points to make the lineup work. But I think it's Cowboys in that entire matchup, and they dicked around enough against the Giants that I expect them to be way more buttoned up and cleaner in the process of taking care of business at home. So I'm just on the Dallas side of things with this one. And then finally, we've got Tampa hosting New Orleans. My opinion of the Saints is the fact that Andy Dalton keeps starting games because New Orleans is trying to get as high of a draft pick as possible rather than playing Jameis Winston. We know this Tampa Bay team isn't any good, but they still have a shot of making the postseason. They're 5-6. Win on Monday night. They get to 6-6. I expect Brady and company to take care of business. And Brady kind of using this where just like we are not losing in December and kind of make the run because the NFC South is still a hot mess. So to me, Tampa controls their own destiny. I expect them to take care of business against the Saints. I don't think it's really that competitive of a game either. So again, this is one where you got to kind of look at your pricing and see how Tampa's going to get there. Is it going to be through the passing game with Godwin or Evans? Rashad White, yeah, it's possible he gets there, but I still think it's going to be more of the primary pass catches for Brady. So that's where I would lean, but no strong take on either Showdown slate because I haven't looked at anything yet, and I'm not going to be able to get to it this week for you guys. So that's all I got. But thank you for listening to the show. I got a busy weekend ahead of me, but until next time, folks, have a good one and be well.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Throwdown podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and all major outlets.
Get ready, Ohio. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to the Buckeye State. And to kick things off, you can get started with $100 in free bets as an early sign-on bonus. Plus, when you sign up today with promo code OHIO, you'll be all set for when FanDuel goes live in Ohio. Then you can bet on all your favorite teams and all your favorite sports with $100 in free bets. Just download FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Ohio. Bonus issued in non-withdrawable free bets that expire 7 days after FanDuel accepts its first real money sports wager in Ohio. 1/1/23. Unique user identity verification required. Offer ends on the go live date. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Ohio, this is your chance to get in on the action. Join today with promo code OHIO.
By giving, people will be helping Nationwide Children's Hospital find cures, brighten patients' holidays, and people will be able to support their neighbors when they need it most. When they donate, they will activate in real time a butterfly-inspired light show for patients this holiday season. They will add holiday cheer to the lives of kids who really need a reason to smile. No one wants to think about their child being sick, but should that day come, the donation they make this year could help the care their child could need in the future. Please give now at nationwidechildrens.org/give.